So that's beautiful. You're right in the prime of your life. That's wonderful.
Praise God. And I think this room sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
You're going to come home and go, oh, what's Moy doing here?
Setting it
Thanks
up.
for letting me share.
Oh, no, that's good. Boy, love it. And you're right over here?
Right down the street, right here.
Yeah, he's the sandals right there.
Yeah, like I
Doing the
said, I went
pastor-
there a couple
pastor's
times
sandals in on.
taking my daughter looking for a church over there, you know.
Yeah.
So went over there, and I'm still getting used to this screen churches, you know.
Satellite.
You know, satellite. I'm still so old school that, you know, I want to touch a girl, you know, when I go out on a date, you know.
They're letting us speak a little more, so.
Yeah, I remember because it was, that was like, watch this, and then you guys get be animated, and,
Yeah.
you know, a little bit more, so. Oh, that's great. That's absolutely great.
Well, Pastor, there's a lot of people that should be here that's not here, but the ones that are here should be here. So we'll keep it at that. But you know, the whole purpose of the huddle is, as I've shared with you, and then we had Charles speak a few months ago too, is just pouring into the guys that are, you know, up and coming. You know, they're excited about, you know, storming the gates of heaven or hell to reach people for heaven. And, you know, I love that enthusiasm, but reality has to hit too. And the way that I've learned is by learning from other people's mistakes. I'd rather learn from their mistakes and pain. That way I don't have to have the mistakes and pain, because I can do that really well already. And so one thing, as I was just praying about this whole year of people to speak into it, and I'm glad that you said yes, is this man, he reinvents himself through the decades. You know, I was showing Moses on the way here, just catching him up, because some of us know the Sefri's background and story, but he wasn't really clear on that. And so I'm kind of sharing your story in Anaheim, the Dream Center and all that stuff. And like, there's the long ponytail in one video, and then there's this, and then there's that, you know, and there's all these new, I don't know, expressions of who you are. And one thing I found is that you do live out that scripture where you become all things to win some. At the same time, I found that a lot of people become like you just to be in the winner's circle. You know, like they want to be around people that are victorious and win. And so you attract a lot of people. And so can you give us some insight, some wisdom, some do's, some don'ts on how to reinvent yourself, be updated all through the years? Because when you started, what year did you start?
I actually planted my first church in 1982.
Yeah, so
you were just a kid then, right? Or maybe born?
4 or 5 years old.
5 years old?
yeah.
And so I planted my first church, and the reason I planted that first church, first off, all of us, I believe all of us are leaders. We're all leading somebody somewhere, but I believe in the John Maxwell teaching that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And we're all influencing people in some way, shape, or form. And so for myself, like I said, I can trace back, you know, as a kid. I got a picture on up here that says where I went to school, not too far from here. I'm an Anaheim boy. So back in my days, Anaheim, we called it Anna Klein. Okay? It was all white. The Ku Klux Klan was running the city council, and they call this Orange County. You know why they call it Orange County? Because orange groves are everywhere. We all played in the orange grove, having orange fights all the time. They told me in second grade, Spanish is a dead language. It's not allowed to be spoken in school. That's why I just stopped. I grew up speaking Spanish and just deserted it. I assimilated. My mom was one of those moms, hey, you know, get along. So I assimilated with all my white friends, doing my thing. But I got up. By the time I was a teenager and my family was broken, I started a crew called Olive Street Crew. That's the street I lived on over there. And so like that, and then by the time I was a hippie, you know, in those areas over there, I started another crew called the Sardonyx, which means death by laughter. So my life was cynical at that time. And then I got in 19 years old, I got busted here in Orange County for $10 worth of marijuana. got sentenced to a year in the county jail for $10 worth of weed, bush weed. It wasn't even Chihuahua gold or anything like that. It was just, things were different. So I had him locked over there. So I went in a flower child into the county jail and came out a wannabe thug, started riding motorcycles, started a group called the Boys. So I was always starting things, no matter what. It don't matter where you put me in my personality, in my way, and I believe all of us like that. We can start something. Some people are more fire starters than others, but like I said, for me, I was always starting something. So here I was locked up and gave my life to God at Chino State Prison, pulled Jesus into my heart, gave my life there, started a group called God's Gang, because I was rough around the edges. I was more Peter style, carrying the shank and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I let people know, hey, don't be in such a rush to get all spiritual, this and that, because God's only going to be working on you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And believe me, when you're looking at it from my end over here, you're going, that's a long, long time. There's sayings that people say all the time that are very meaningful. And one of them, those sayings, they're extra biblical truth. One of those sayings is, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. So here I am, God's a gang in the prison. I'm in there, it's beautiful. I had a mentor, hardcore guy, like I said. My wife married me in prison over there. We did all the things, premarital, all the kind of stuff like that. We were just hardcore right from the get-go, Christian believers, not a denomination, but when I was getting let go from the prison, the pastor, the inmate pastor that mentored me there told me, look for a Baptist church. Okay, this is in 1978. Look for a Baptist church because they preach the word. So right down the street is the SOB church, First Southern Baptist Church, right down the street. Brother Hazen was the preacher at the time there. He's long since gone. I took me and my wife, we go in there, and I was taught in prison, when you get out there, when you hear the preacher preach, go up after the service and thank him for the message, And so I did exactly that. My first church that I went to out here in the streets really didn't know any Christians. And after service, I walked up to the pastor, my wife and I, and she's a Sicilian woman, beautiful Italian lady. And so we walk up to the pastor and I said, I want to tell you, this message is great. And he goes, you've been born again? And so this is, important part of, first time members. I come up, he goes, you've been born again? I go, yeah. And he goes, where? And I go, Chino State Prison. And he goes, I got a place for you called Convicts for Christ, or I could send you. You'd fit in real good over there. I already made up my mind. I didn't want to be with just a bunch of people like me. I wanted to be people that, when I mentioned I was a drug addict, they go, oh, ew, that's weird. I don't want to be a bunch of, yeah, I did it too. So I told him, I said, well, I'd really like to be at a church like this. We're just all-American, sweetie pie church. And he goes, we're not into mixed marriages here. And I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, you're black, she's white. And I go, well, actually, I'm a Blaxican. I didn't say those words, but that's my point to him. So that was my first experience on the outside here.
Wow.
So I knew one guy from high school. I dropped out of high school in 11th grade, tried it twice, didn't work. But there was one guy named Greg Lyles. I always remember that he was a Christian. So I called him up and go, I'm out of prison now. I'm on fire for Jesus. In prison, I was the Apostle Paul Saul. I was that guy in there. Fired. They let me out early because they said that lieutenants, the parole board, we've never met anybody like you that's so on fire for God, like I said. I lived when Paul praised the Lord at midnight. At midnight, I started praising the Lord, shouting. Like I said, I was the guy when we were out in the yard. I tell them, hey, I'm going to go back to my bedroom. They go, bedroom? That's a cell. What are you talking about? I go, no, man. We're seated in heavenly places, In the morning time, I go, I can't wait to see what's for breakfast. That's slop, that's chow, Phil, but my mindset was totally like, I'd learned to be content no matter what state prison I was in. Added a little bit to the scripture, learning to be content no matter where. So I got that right from the get-go. It's in there, boom, my wife's happy. And as soon as we got out, our pastor in there had me speaking at a church that weekend. We came down here because you had to parole to your own county. We came on down over here, And like I says, you know, after I had that first experience, my buddy turned me on to a Central Baptist Church, a guy named Dr. Bob Wells, well-known guy. I don't know what, I don't think he was an independent fundamentalist Baptist church that made the Southern Baptists seem like they were, you know, riding on the fence. That type of guy like that. So he sends me to a place, says, hey, because I told him I'm going to learn more about the Bible. So he says, you need to go to Bible college. I go, what's that? And so he sent me to a place called Pacific Coast Baptist Bible College. It was an affiliate school of a guy named Jerry Falwell, who was a popular independent fundamental Baptist church, and they were concerned. They wanted you to make sure you had a haircut. They didn't let women wear pants, all that kind of stuff. But I knew it was God sending me there, so I go to school, and you know, I'm in my 30s, and most of the kids are there for their MRS degree, you know, and they're 18 and 19 years old. You know what an MRS degree is? No. Good. I'm glad I got you on something. That means getting married. MRS, Mrs. They're going to school there, so they can meet a preacher man. That was the setup how preachers work. They send their daughter to a Christian place, believing they're going to, you know, hook up with another Christian man, and it's going to be all right and stuff like that. So I go to this school, and man, I'm broke and all this kind of stuff, but my psychology teacher says, hey, I'd like to hire you to work in my church. It's called Anaheim Baptist Church. So my town, Anaheim, God working again, like it says, they hire me, and I was, what do you call, one of those, I was a babysitter, you know, when the kids come in from Christian school, you watch them in the morning until school starts, and then you're there for recess, then you're there for lunch, then after school, parents don't get there till 6, pick them up. So I was an extended daycare worker, babysitter, doing that, you know, and I can remember, like I says, the pastor from the church said, hey man, start bringing your friends to church, because they wanted a lot of people to come to church. You know, a lot of people think that's the answer, get a lot of people at church, but I found out more people, more problems. That's just how it is. And so he wanted me to invite people. So I invited all my people, my girls that are coming, got their tits hanging out, got their asses hanging out. They're full of booze smell. They're high on every kind of drug in the world. But I know when Jesus said, follow me and I'll make you to become fishers of men, I didn't have any fancy fishing gear. I just had a canoe with one oar, you know. And so when I went fishing, the kind of fish I caught were carp. When's the last time somebody invited you out to a carp dinner? Never. It ain't bougie fish. I don't catch bougie fish. Every once in a while, a marlin will jump in my net, but you know, I go, how'd that happen? You know, I got carp. They're fighters, bottom feeders, and stuff like that. Right. There's a sign on my head. I attract the riffraff, the misfits. You know, you name it. They come unto me. And so I started filling up the church with all this, and I had the deacons pull me in and said, hey, we need you to start bringing in tithers, literally that type of thing. So I spent a few years trying to do the whole thing, like I said, but I was packing the place out with my kind of people. So finally the pastor said, you need to start a church. So in 1982, I started Set Free Baptist Church. And first thing I did is I got somebody like you who played the guitar, you know. I know 4 chords, so I started off. I said, I'm going to be the worship leader until somebody comes better. And 2 weeks later, somebody came better. So, you know, started playing the guitar. So in those days, in 1982, when we started the church, anybody who used a guitar, you know, once you pick up a guitar, you're getting ready to go into sin. Just simple as that. My wife, for the first 10 years of our church, never wore a pair of pants. She always wore a dress. Even though on the motorcycle, I put her on there with the dress, whatever it is. There was just different rules and stuff like that. So I was breaking all those rules. And then my kid from my first marriage that I left, at 17 years old, he shows up at my door. I hadn't seen him since he was 3 years old. He shows up at my door, a drug addict, and needs help. So I'm happy. I got my kid back. Life's happy. Jesus, all this kind of cool stuff. But my kid is a DJ, and he's into rap, NWA, and all these different heavy duty rap groups. So they're saying nigga this and all that kind of stuff. And I go, hey, listen guys, you're gonna rap, you gotta make a Christian rap. So they got all these MC Hammer songs, you know, like I said, can't touch this, they call it can't judge this, you know, OPP, you down with GOD, you know, they just changed all the lyrics. And I'm telling you, so all my kids are rapping, doing it in church. So the Baptist pastors around said, could you please, hey, how you doing, buddy? So he says, "Could you please?" This is my little twin grandsons. And so people, we're the first rap in America. First rap in America in a Christian church. Let me tell you. So,
During church, not an event, but during.
oh yeah, Sunday morning, the holy hour. You know what?
Hymn number 290.
We were there, like I said, so my kids are doing this rap, and everybody, wants to move and groove and all those kind of stuff, like I says. And so it was exciting, And then, like I said, I got a guy named Kid Ramos, one of the, hey honey, granddaughters. One of my kids who was, doing the rap and stuff like that. Everybody wanted to get involved. All the kids started coming. So next thing you know, kids are coming because they're hearing there's rap at our church. The other Baptist church says, "Please take Baptist off of your sign. You are not a Baptist." So I called it Set Free Christian Fellowship, and just had to move and groove with it, But we started growing and doing that stuff. And one of the things I added that the gift of hospitality is number one to me. I started, moving people into my house, and I'd have 30 people at a time. And to make money at the time, I was a karate instructor. And so, my first student that came, there's a thing called Marketplace, a magazine. You guys know what magazines are? Paper things, like I says. Anyway, this one I put in there, karate taught from a Christian perspective, trying to sell and buy lessons. Well, the first lady that came in, she ended up being my secretary for 18 years, Lois, and helped me build churches. But her husband was the cameraman at a little place called Trinity Broadcasting Network. Now, in your guys' generation, you guys got likes, views, this, that, viral, all that kind of stuff. Back in the day, in the 80s, television, you scroll and there was only about 15 things to scroll on. That was it. You're gonna see TBN. Now, every different network, but you're gonna see TBN. Biggest microphone in the world to be able to speak and project your message out there. And so as we're feeding people, helping people, taking people in, and we're doing it in an old warehouse, no air conditioning, no heating system, anything like that. A real warehouse before regulations came along where you got to have this and sprinklers and all that stuff like that. I mean, we were meeting in a warehouse, and I go, how would we ever fill this up? And then I had two people come and visit me. One of those things that I've really taught extra biblical thing is be careful whose toes you step on today, because they very well could be connected to the ass you'll be kissing tomorrow. People, opportunities, man, it doesn't matter what they look like or anything like that, and it took me a long time to figure that out. But these two people, Paul and Jan Krause, Jan Krause had big old eyelashes like that, yellow wigs, purple wigs. I mean, she looked like a clown to me, but she loved Jesus. She loved Jesus, and her husband, businessman all the time, just busy. But they had this network, and so they loved what we did. So hey, what do you need here? We want to help you out. Because my secretary, her husband was a cameraman there, so he told them all about us, stuff like that. Next thing you know, like I said, they're over at our place. And they go, what do you need help? I said, I need room for more people. They got us a 2-story house. We filled it up in about 3 months. They go, what else you need? Another house. And it turned out like that, where we ended up having close to 400 people living in our homes. We leased about 30 homes in Anaheim here. We were taking people in, and Beans and Rice and Jesus Christ. And we started off back there in 1982, where we started the saying, we go where pizza man don't deliver. In other words, we go into the highways and the byways of hell where people won't go. And we pick them. We don't just leave them to the Lord, leave them dirty out there. We clean them. A lot of people like to catch fish, but they don't want to clean fish. So we took them in, taking them in. So it's always been, to me, one of those things, like I said, the cool part about having a home full of men and women that you've taken in is when you decide you want to have an outreach, you got a crew that get out there and witness. When you decide you want to have we challenged every game in Orange County to a football game, basketball game. I said, if we lose, I'll buy you a keg of beer. If we win, you got to come to Bible study. We never lost one game. Never lost one game.
Trina,
Trina. Yeah, never lost one game. You know, my whole point of it is for us, and that time and this time, because I'm still doing it today, you know, taking people off the streets, because you got full-time people. I don't know how much you get paid, but you know, they should pay you a lot over there. But I'm working with people and they get paid Jesus bucks. John Maxwell will teach you in his program like that. You know you're a good leader when you get people to do something and you ain't paying them. Does that make any sense?
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm dealing with Jesus bucks all the time, because a long time ago I took what's called a vow of poverty. So when people wanted to give me things, I said I can't take it to own it, but like I said, I'll use it. You know, I don't have the pink slip to the car, but just let me drive it. That type of thing. So that type of mentality, you know, starting off, getting a little team, you know, helping them, and that way, like I think it says in Ephesians, you know, we train people to be able to receive other people, you know, and so we totally brought in people, loving people. Then you know what it's like feeding 400 people breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks each day. The logistics is a whole other thing.
Right.
So everything's done in baby steps. Everything's done baby steps. But a lot of times, I got a brother of mine, he goes, man, I've always had 30 people living in my house. And he goes, I couldn't do that. Me and my wife couldn't have any good fights. And I go, think about that. Maybe that's the reason you should do that. My whole point, like I says, that gift to hospital, we could be entertaining angels unaware, you know, with the gifts. We all know the mentality, like Jesus says that we're filled with treasure inside. But I found out we need some gold diggers to help dig that treasure out of us, because it's covered with, I don't know if I can do it. I'm fearful of this. This is hard. So what I did in this town, like I said, I was doing, taking it like that. And then I was studying the book, teaching the book of Nehemiah. My wife says, why don't you go to the king of Anaheim and talk to him, ask for help? I go, well, who's the king of Anaheim? She goes, the mayor. I went to the mayor. Out to the mayor and said, hey, I need some houses. The city was remodeling a whole bunch of downtown like this, so they started leasing me houses for $50 a month, taking in more people. So they're building an army like this because, but they couldn't detox or be out of a downtown. So Hemet in Paris, California, got a couple acres out there, put some trailers out there, and you know, I got one trailer for the tweakers, you know, and got some stuff to tear apart, you know, another one for all the opiate people over there and give them a bunch of candy bars and sugar and stuff like that. We never had one person die. We had never one person with a seizure and do all that stuff. Your generation invented all that kind of stuff, you know. There was no bipolar, this or that and stuff like that. Well, when they came in, the diagnosis for everybody I dealt with is, she's crazy. He's crazy. You know, I mean, it was a different world. Now you gotta do all kinds of different things like this is.
Yeah.
But it was always the hospitality, bringing people in, loving the unlovely, you know, and till this day, like I said, I still see that. I was watching the head guy that you guys just booted, purpose-driven fellow.
Oh, Rick Warren?
Yeah, I was just watching him a couple mornings ago on a TV show or something like that, talking about that early church, the kindness. Kindness. Doesn't sound like a big, powerful, supernatural, you know, one of the big messages, but kindness, you know. And it took me a long time to learn all these things too, you know. But just being kind to people opens doors of opportunities, meeting people. And we can look at somebody and go, oh, he's got this, she's got that, or maybe be wrong all the time, you know, like it says, that backstory, you know. And I call it the hangout ministry, where we just hang out. And, you know, because we know once people walk into church, there's a little bit of the jitters, there's a little bit of they've been hurt by church or a pastor or a Christian, stuff like that. But when we're just in regular places, at the park, hanging outside, backyard, pool party, you know, hey, you seem safe, you know. The minute you start telling me you're a preacher's kid and all that kind of stuff, I go, twisted. You know, I mean, you know, we all got our own little views on it, like I said. And in mine, I'm not the guy. I know those saying, I've been saying it for decades, a wise man learns from his mistakes, but a wiser one learns from mistakes of others. I don't know if I've ever met a wiser one. I don't know if I ever have. I sure am not that one, like I said. It's 60 years old, like I said. I make the front page of every newspaper and news thing, you know, not for something good. just because pride, that drug pride, you know, comes back again to haunt us. So we all say this, everybody knows you are who you hang out with. And I've spent the last 40 plus years hanging out with people half my age. Tonight, in a little while, I'm gonna do a recovery night, you know, and you know, most of the people are around 23 years old, 24 years old, and most of them have probably been 2 weeks ago, they were overdosing on fentanyl, meth, you know, Xanax, whatever, you know, and but they're young people, so I learn from them. That's why I said I say weird things sometimes that they go, did you hear what Chief said, you know, because, you know, I'm not hip to all the new language, you know, sus, they side-eyed me, and all this kind of stuff, you know. So, but I get in there and hang out with them, let them laugh at what I think is funny and stuff like that. But, you know, the whole thing is getting around people that irritate us or unlovely or looks like they're using us, because people are always that. Like my birthday last September, I turned 77 on my birthday. It was the greatest birthday party I ever had. Go ahead, come on through. We won't get you.
I think you have to come on something.
And my best birthday I've ever had, 77, and excited. It was wonderful, big party, this, that, and while I did that, when I came home here, they stole my motorcycle. You know, every material thing you can think of. That's all I've got left is pictures, the memories, and that's what really counts, you know. Making memories all the time, because things you find out, like I said, at 60 years old, when I got myself in big trouble, I decided to become a professional forgiver. Man, I said, I'm gonna outlive all my enemies, I'm just gonna love everybody, don't matter how they treat me, this, like that, what they do and stuff like that. I'm not gonna let them rob my joy. This morning I shared a little message in Acts 20:24, you guys all know it, I'm sure. But none of these things move me, neither do I count my life dear to myself, but I'm gonna finish the race that I have to finish this course. I'm going to finish it with joy to testify about the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ. So all of us, it's wonderful. Like I says, we're giving out this, we're telling about this free gift, and none of us, you know, we're all on the same level with human beings, whatever our title is, and things like that. And I've been, like I said, I did a marriage yesterday, and I have some people go, oh, they should have been counseled longer, you know. Everybody's got an opinion about that. Hey, I'm just glad that I'm dealing with a generation where marriage.
Right.
Father's Day last week, I had a group I was facilitating, about 15 men, and one of the ladies, the clinical director, she decides Father's Day, I'm gonna get them all a Father's Day bag, little gift, you know, happy Father's Day. I didn't know that Father's Day is number 20 on the list of holidays. You know, I mean, mothers are up there right next to Jesus and Christmas, but fathers, let me tell you. And so she gives them these beautiful gift bags and stuff like that. And she says, okay, Johnny, you start first. Tell us about what Father's Day means to you. That piece of shit motherfucking father of mine, no good, I'll piss on his grave. And then it got bad. And around that room, every single, including one of the guys that I'm training up right now, Noah over there, like I said, his dad just died last month, but like I said, he told his dad right before his dad died, I'm gonna piss on your grave, you piece of shit. I mean, fathers got it rough.
Hello.
It's just how it is, you know. And we can think it's not gonna happen to us, but hey, even if it's just a kid going, I hate you, you know, or whatever it might be and stuff like that. And I'm always just finding out about one of my grandkids. He was saying, yeah, I used to smoke a lot of pot, or I did this, stuff like that. You know, we get blind, maybe not you guys, but you know, you get blind and you forget all that kind of stuff, you know. But keeping with the young people, always knowing revival is there. A guy named Lonnie Frisbee, I don't know if you ever heard of him, like I says, but he was in a movie, The Jesus Revolution. And Chuck Smith and him are the ones that started Calvary Chapels that went worldwide. But this Lonnie Frisbee was a little hippie, LSD and all that kind of stuff. And Lonnie had some gay encounters. Whether he was full-blown homosexual, I don't know. But he had some gay encounters. Greg Laurie got a hold of me to ask me, do you think he was gay? Because Lonnie spent the last 3 years with me. In the last 3 years, we tried to go get with Chuck Smith, because that was his daddy figure in the Lord. I got a guy named Fausto who's being picked for this big giant thing in America, one of the top speakers in America, and he calls me his dad. I'm his spiritual father. Spiritual fathers are more real nowadays than real fathers. It's just how it is. And so, yeah, these people, like I said, who they're a whole nother breed. So these kids, so at this age, I'm either their dad figure or their grandfather figure, and hey, whatever works, and becoming all things to all people that we might win some. And like I said, last week I was at Mariners Church. One of the kids they sent over me to help overdosed on fentanyl and died. 18-year-old kid. His family weren't millionaires. They are billionaires. Tried to buy him everything in the world, didn't matter. And so here I was, and I didn't get the memo. And so the family had a big funeral outdoor in the new worship center they have. And the memo said everybody wear white. So we're wearing our typical outfits, So we stood out, but the mother of that teenager that died ran over to talk to us and love on us, because we tried with her kid. We just gave it our very best, but we don't win them all. So to me, now it's up in this age, like I says, that's why my kids told me about this white underbelly YouTube thing that's pretty popular. And so people got me on that show. The social media, that's beautiful. I think it's the greatest thing in the world, because we're really trying to build a kingdom. We're not caught up in our buildings, and what we're running that you can see face to face, because it is the reality. During the COVID time, that backyard was packed every day. Packed. Every once in a while, we'd see somebody walk in with a mask, and we're bad kids. We shamed them. Ooh, are you afraid? My point of it is, people do different things, different ways to reach out. But this new generation, the young, I'm just learning things all the time. The conversations, like I said, talking about initials and all this different things, like it says. But this is the fish. This is the lot that God's given me. And like I said, I'm just an old man with a young heart. And I'm telling, SOG was there this morning. Like I said, I'm telling people I'm on fire. I get high on Jesus. The biggest turn on in the world, like it says, is seeing people grow, seeing people smile, seeing them we help people get their kids back all the time. We're working with a bunch of Native Americans, so they come from the reservation. There's no place I know where people are more addicted than on reservations, indigenous people. And right now, one of my assistants, she just came back from one of them,
San Diego.
Yeah, one of them powwow, or where they go on the thing, sweat or whatever they do. Yeah. And I'm from a whole nother world, but I get to work with those people. I have some of those people that I'm helping. They were over at my alma mater, Anaheim High School, right down the street, protesting. I go, what are you guys protesting over there for? They go, well, we want to have them change the logo on your high school. And the logo is Anaheim Colonists. Being a colonist now is like, when white people took my land, no dirty dogs. And, I didn't even know the history, how they even went down, But my point of it is, like it says, is just learning, loving, and asking the big questions, and, how's it going? And where they know that you care for them, and they're open. And I just think it's wonderful when you're sharing about those young people, like I said, it's just feeling that they're hungry, And my young kids on the rap stuff and everything like that, they're the ones that were getting our church going. I mean, kids, so parents started coming and wondered why all their teenagers wanted to come to church.
Right.
Everybody's followers, we're all playing follow the leader in life. And then, like I says, but one of the biggest challenges for me maybe not for you, God, a little bit for you, Moy, because when you're extremely good looking, it's kind of a curse. You know what I mean? Any of you guys aware of that in life, you know?
No.
Kirk, you don't have to worry about that. But any kind of little stage platform we get on, like right now, in a few minutes, I'll be going over there and getting on, we made a little stage that's about that high. It don't matter if it's that high or this high. When you get on a stage, people are looking. They're not probably going to read the Bible, but they're going to read you. They're going to read me. And so I come up there, like it says, I realize I try to look into every eye, and the girls are just starting to get their eyelashes back on. Yeah. Guys are just starting to put deodorant back on, because they've been drug addicts leaning by the trash cans in the backseat of their cars, the parts. I mean, they've been out of it, but they're starting to clean up a little bit, and I give them that warning. Not all the fruit is ripe here, guys.
Uh-oh.
And that just gets them more excited. Because it's kind of like the first time I heard that verse, can a man take fire into his bosom and not get burnt? My first thought was, how burnt will I get? We're working with the whole world like that. Dating apps, everything like that. So just getting to know, and now I get to teach people, oh, you meet her on farmers.com? I didn't know there was one, but I find out a little thing. Just to try to, talk to them and be in their world, and they can laugh at me. And then at the end of my night on Sunday nights, after we've congratulated people on clean time, after I get a couple speakers speaking about life and how to get a good routine and all that kind of stuff, then I have them join hands and I close in a word of prayer, and then I have a DJ, and they play the Cupid Shuffle, and next thing you know, everybody, people like to dance. Young people love to dance. And where are they going to go dance? Especially, if you're an addict, you can't go to the bar anymore or here because, you're going to be tempted. You probably won't make it. There's drugs all over. So where do they do it? With this old man on a Sunday night, who's laughing his head off because they go, man, I love to watch you white people dance. I can get away with that. Kirk couldn't. You know what I mean? So we got to utilize what we got going for us,
Right.
Every gang member, Mexican guy, everywhere it is, like I said, when they see me, ole, homie, hey, they don't realize there's a white punk rocker that lives inside of me. Mick Jagger is my hero in my life, like it says, But I get along. I can get away for about 30 seconds, and then they find out when I start going wowie zowie and all that kind of stuff. But just staying relevant, keeping in there, and like I says, I really have utilized this, and it's been part of my conduct code. I don't call in sick, I crawl in sick. I have never missed church because I couldn't walk in like that. I had people help me. Sometimes I help them prop me up on that. And that might not be a big thing to everybody, but for me, better believe me, because I love it. Because I don't have to do it, I get to do it, And that's why I said we're early, won't be late. This way, we're just showing we respect other people's times and that type of thing like that. And lastly, like it says, when we're going, like I got a couple of little places I go to eat, and a couple of them, the food isn't that good, but they treat me like gold when I go there.
Yeah.
And so I go back just because, hey Chief, how you doing? Hey, how's it going? Stuff again. Yeah. I don't mind if a lot of people go, they're just bullshitting you. It don't matter, it still feels good. You know what I mean? I ain't tripping, and all that kind of stuff. I'm judging people where they're thinking from, And then, like I said, when people come to the Lord, I let them know a lot of times they may not say the sinner's prayer the correct way or this stuff like that. Yeah, I tell people, God doesn't read lips, He reads hearts.
Right.
He's looking to see where we're at like that. So, I think it's totally beautiful. I know when your house got to hear you sharing, having that heart, there was a fire inside of me, And that's what it is continue keeping that fire going. I stay in the middle of the pack, Now I collaborate with people. I don't do the old Moses style where it's just me and you rebels better follow me, But I had to go through all those different things. I learned through all those different things. And I just turned a couple of my assistants that I mentioned, I just turned them on to how I was brought up. I sent him a tape by a guy named Jack Hiles, you know, and this guy, you know, just rough and tough as could be, but like I says, he was a soul winner, and for another generation, people talk a little bit. I understand Trump because I'm his age, you know. I'm an interrupter myself, you know. We do those type of things. Any thoughts, questions?
Thank you for sharing, Chief. I really appreciate it. I know Kirk, Pastor Kirk, he's always inspired by you. So thank you, Pastor.
Why do they call you Chief?
Chief, why? Good question. See, those are the real questions that count, you know, stuff like that. In 1982, I started Set Free Church, and then that Paul and Jan, that crazy lady, I got a picture of her over here, me giving her a tattoo. She went put in a Paul's tattoo. She used to hang out at my house, and so she could watch Airplane and all these things that she could do. She felt I was the only person, the only preacher that she could be herself and let her hair down. She didn't wear wigs. Let her hair down. My wife was her house cleaner, took care of her house, all that stuff. She just loved us because she could be herself. People love acceptance, being their self. I hate somebody that just quit smoking cigarettes yesterday, because they're judging everybody for smoking, you know? And everybody judging their hang-ups. A preacher talking about sex so much that you know they're porn stars themselves, you know? And so here I am, like I said, this going, then Paul Chan want to give me a TV program. That costs money. 28 minutes, 30 seconds, a TV program on TBN, the biggest network in the world, bigger than NBC, ABC, all of those. I mean, huge, billions of dollars they're worth, stuff like that. They like me so much, they put me on the board. On the board, 5-person board, 4 of the people on the board are their family. They trusted and loved me so much, they wanted me to have a program. I really wasn't going for it, like I said, but we took rap on it, we did our thing, we did a show, it was called 24/7 Show, and that was before 24/7 was well known. And man, people would come from other countries, they'd go to Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, Set Free Church in Anaheim. We took over a whole block. We ended up having a Gina's Pizza Parlor. We had a taco shop. We had all this stuff, still warehouse style. We had classic lowrider cars. We had 75 Harley-Davidson motorcycles in front. I had greeters were all my bikers, you know. I made them like that so people could get hugged by somebody in leather. Everybody wants to smell that good taste of leather in a motorcycle jacket. So all this stuff's going on, and I got this TV program on. And that's great, and people want to get popular, but it wasn't, you know, wasn't good for me. It's like when you get a 10-year-old kid, and I want to give you, you know, $20,000 here.